Welcome to the LivelyLatin Big Book 1 Summary and Review. The first thing that we need to know about is what's in a verb. In Big Book 1, we deal with person and number, who and how many. First singular I, second singular you, third singular he, she, it, first plural we, second plural you all, third plural they. We also deal with the concept of tense, which describes when the action happens. I run is present tense, I was running is imperfect tense, and I shall run is future tense. In Big Book 1, we also deal with the subject of conjugations. A conjugation is a group of verbs with similar spelling patterns. And in Big Book 1, we deal with two conjugations. These are called first conjugation, amo, amare, do, dare. All first conjugation verbs have this o, are pattern. And second conjugation verbs. All second conjugation verbs have this eo, ere pattern. Moneo, monere, waleo, walere. Let's conjugate a first conjugation verb in the present tense. The first thing that we need to do is write down the first principal part. Then we're going to write down the stem of the second principal part minus re. Then we're going to add the endings. The first principal part is the form with the o. The second principal part is the form with the re. After we've written down the first principal part and the stem of the second principal part minus the re, then we'll add the endings s, t, mus, tis, and unt. I love, you love, he, she, it loves, we love, you all love, and they love. In Latin, the stem of the verb tells you the definition, whereas the ending tells you who has done the action. Amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatis, amant. I love, you love, he, she, it loves, we love, you all love, they love. We could also say I am loving, you are loving, he, she, it is loving, or I do love, you do love, he, she, it does love, etc. The present tense in Latin is rather flexible. Now let's conjugate a first conjugation verb in the imperfect tense. Once again, we'll use the stem of the second principal part, and then we'll add the imperfect tense endings. AMA is the stem, second principal part minus the RE. Then we add the endings bum, bus, but, bamus, batis, and bunt. I was loving, you were loving, he, she, it was loving, we were loving, you all were loving, and they were amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamas, amabatis, amabant. Now let's conjugate a first conjugation verb in the future tense. Once again, we're using the second principal part of the verb minus the re as the stem. So AMA all the way down times 6. Then we're going to add the future tense endings, and those are always bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, and bunt. I shall love, you will love, he, she, it will love, we shall love, you all will love, and they will love. Amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitis, amabunt. All first conjugation verbs are done exactly the same way. So if you know how to do one, you know how to do them all. Let's look at a summary of these three tenses. Amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatis, amant, present tense. Amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamas, amabatis, amabant, imperfect tense. Amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitis, amabunt. Future tense. As I said, all first conjugation verbs are done exactly the same way in these three tenses. If you know how to do one, you know how to do them all. Alright, now let's look at an irregular verb. The be verb, sum esse, in the present tense. The be verb is the most important verb in Latin. Its conjugation is irregular. Let's look at the stem and you'll see this irregularity. Notice the stem varies quite a bit. This just has to be memorized. There's no short explanation. explanation for why this happens. MST, muss, tis, und, those are the endings. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you all are, they are. Sum, es, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Now let's look at the imperfect tense of the be verb. This one's a little more regular. You'll have ERA as the stem all the way down. So we write down ERA times 6, and then we'll add the endings MST, muss, tis, and und. So I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, you all were, and they were. That's the imperfect tense of the be. Let's look at the future tense now. First of all, we're going to write down ER 6 times. And after we've got our ERs, then we have O, IS, IT, IMUS, ITIS, and UNT. The translation, I shall be, you will be, he, she, it will be, we shall be, you all will be, and they will be. And here's a summary of the be verb in the present, imperfect, and future tenses. Once again, the conjugation of this verb is irregular. Sum, es, est, sumus, estis, sunt, eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratis, erant, ero, eres, eret, eremus, eretis, erunt. All right, now let's talk about what's in nouns and adjectives. There are 3 main ingredients in nouns and adjectives. Number, which tells how many, singular, cat, plural, cats. Gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And case, which tells us the grammatical function in the sentence. In Big Book 1, you're going to see primarily the nominative case and the ablative case. The nominative case is the most frequently used case in Latin, and the nominative case is used for the subject of a verb. Marcus eats fish, so Marcus would be in the nominative case in Latin. The nominative case is also used for something called the predicate nominative. So if we have the sentence Marcus is a fisherman, Marcus would be nominative, but fisherman would also be in the nominative case because it renames the subject. It's basically Marcus is equal to a fisherman. Nominative is equal to nominative. Latin has other cases, but in Big Book 1 you won't really deal with these. The genitive case usually shows possession, Julia's son. In this instance, Julia's would be in the genitive case in Latin. Latin also has a dative case, which usually represents the indirect object. I give fish to Julia. So in this instance, to Julia would be put in the dative case. Latin also has an accusative case, which is the direct object of a verb, or the object of certain prepositions. So in the sentence, I put kids into the car, kids would be accusative in Latin, and the word car would also be accusative in Latin. The Latin preposition that represents into takes an accusative object. In Big Book 1, though, the other major case that we see is the ablative case, and this is used for the object of certain prepositions. So in the sentence, I saw Julia with a fish, in Latin, the word fish would be in the ablative case because the Latin preposition that means with always takes an ablative object. One note about gender in Latin. A Latin noun's gender often depends on how the noun is spelled. The Latin word for woman, femina, is feminine in Latin, and we'd expect it to be feminine in English too. But the Latin word for spear is also feminine. Femina and asta both end in this A, and as it turns out, both femina and asta are first declension nouns, and almost all first declension nouns are feminine. And the reason why they're feminine is because they are first declension nouns, not necessarily because they have anything to do with something masculine or feminine. The verbs are conjugated, but nouns and adjectives are declined. And a declension is a group of nouns or adjectives with similar spelling patterns. Latin nouns typically fall into one of 5 declensions, and in Big Book 1, we deal with first declension nouns and second declension nouns. Latin adjectives typically fall into one of 2 declensions. These are known as first and second declension adjectives and third declension adjectives. In Big Book 1, we only deal with first and second declension adjectives. How can you tell what declension a noun is? You have to look at the genitive singular ending. When you look at a Latin noun in the dictionary, you'll see two Latin forms. The first form is the nominative singular, the second form is the genitive singular. It always follows this pattern in the dictionary entry. Nominative singular, genitive singular, nominative singular, genitive singular, nominative singular, genitive singular, nominative singular, genitive singular. First declension nouns always have an AE in the genitive singular. Second declension nouns always have an I in the genitive singular. And that's how you can tell what declension a noun is. You have to look at the genitive singular ending. Let's decline a first declension noun. Ursa, ursae, feminine, it means bear. First thing that we do is write down the nominative singular. The second thing that we're going to do is take the genitive singular and drop the AE to get the stem. After we've got the stem, then we're going to add first declension endings. This is a first declension noun, so it has to have first declension endings. The AE on the genitive indicates that it is a first declension noun. First declension nouns always have these same endings. AE, AE, AM, long A, AE, aram, is, as, and is. This word means bear. So we'll give a sample translation. Bear is the subject, of or for the bear, to or for the bear, bear as the object, by or with the bear. Bears as the subject, of or for the bears, to or for the bears, bears as an object, by or with the bears. That's just a sample translation. If you know how to decline one first declension noun, you know how to do them all. Most first declension nouns are feminine, but there are a couple of masculine ones. The word for sailor, for example, is masculine. Nauta, nautai. But just because it's masculine, that doesn't mean that the endings change. It's a first declension noun, so it has to have exactly the same endings as we saw on Ursa. So here's Ursa, and then here's Nauta. Ursa, Nauta. As you can tell, the endings are exactly the same. All first declension nouns have these endings. Let's decline a second declension Latin noun. This one's masculine, and frequently the masculine second declension nouns have US in the nominative singular. Second declension nouns always have I in the genitive singular. So once again, we're going to write down the nominative singular, but this time we get the stem by dropping the I from the genitive singular. So EQU is the stem, and then, because this is a second declension noun, we're going to add second declension endings. And second declension masculine nouns all have these same endings. Equus, equi, equo, equum, equo, equi, equorum, equis, equos, equis. Here's a sample translation. Horse is the subject, of or for the horse, to or for the horse, horse as an object, by or with the horse. Horses as the subject, of or for the horses, to or for the horses, horses as an object, by or with the horses. This is a second declension masculine noun. Some second declension masculine nouns end in R in the nominative singular, but that's the only place that they differ, is that nominative singular. Everywhere else, they're exactly the same as the second declension nouns whose masculines end in US. The word weir, weary, is masculine. It means man. So here's a sample translation. Man is the subject, of or for the man, to or for the man, man is the object, by or with the man. Men as the subject, of or for the men, to or for the men, men as the object, by or with the men. First declension feminine, second declension masculine, where the nominative ends in US. Second declension masculine, where the nominative ends in R. Now let's decline a second declension neuter noun. One thing that we have to watch out for is that all neuter words have the same spelling in their nominatives and accusatives. Once again, we're going to get the stem by dropping the I from the genitive singular. You can always tell a second declension neuter noun is the nominative singular ends in um. All neuter words have the same spelling in the nominative singular and the accusative singular. So donum, doni, dono, donum, dono, dona, donorum, donis, dona, donis. Okay, so we write down the nominative singular times 2, and we write down the stem 8 times genitive singular minus the I. Then we add second declension neuter endings. These are basically the same as second declension masculine. The only places where you get some difference, singular of the neuter and the nominative plural and accusative plural of the neuter. This word means gift, like our word donation. Gift is the subject, of or for the gift, to or for the gift. Gift is the object, by or with the gift. Gifts is the subject, of or for the gifts, to or for the gifts. Gifts as an object, by or with the gifts. This is second declension neuter. And now let's compare the various types of second declension nouns. And you'll notice that second declension masculine and neuter nouns differ only in their nominatives and accusative. And I've marked with arrows the places where second declension neuter nouns differ from second declension masculine nouns. So nominative singular, nominative plural, accusative plural, those are the places where you have the difference. Otherwise, the endings are the same all across the board. Equorum, virorum, donorum, equo viro dono, equo viro dono, equi viri doni. The endings are typically the same. There are some differences in the nominatives and accusatives. Now let's look at some first and second declension adjectives. So here's what they look like typically. You'll see this us, pattern, meus, mea, meum, sana, sana, sanum, bonus, bona, bonum. The red forms indicate the nominative singular masculine, the green forms indicate the nominative singular feminine, and the blue forms indicate nominative singular of the neuter. The good thing about first and second declension adjectives is that they have the same endings as first and second declension nouns. So if you know how to decline first and second declension nouns, then you also know how to decline first and second declension adjectives. So here's some first and second declension nouns, equus, ursa, and donum. Now let's compare the first and second declension adjectives. We look at the declension of bonus, bona, bonum, and compare it to the declension of equus, ursa, donum. We'll find out that the endings are the same. So, if you know how to decline first and second declension nouns, then you know how to decline first and second declension adjectives. The reason that adjectives have so many forms is because adjectives have to agree with the nouns they modify in 3 ways. They have to match up in case, number, and gender. So if we're going to have the phrase good horse and make it the subject, bonus and equus have to be the same case, number, and gender. Equus is masculine and singular and nominative. Bonus is masculine and singular and nominative. Same with the good bear. Bona, ursa. Both of these words are nominative singular and feminine. The good gift. Bonum and donum. Both of these words are nominative singular and neuter. Oftentimes, the us and the us, the a and the a, the and the the endings will match up. Often that is the case, but it's not always the case. You can have nouns and adjectives in agreement, but they may not be spelled the same. Bonus nauta is good sailor in the nominative singular, but they don't have the same ending. Why is that? Well, nauta is first declension masculine, and so it has to have a first declension masculine A, but the masculine adjective has second declension endings. So even though both of these words are not spelled the same, they are in agreement because they're both nominative, singular, and masculine. This is a little bit tricky, and you may have to think about this for a little while before it sort of sinks in. But adjectives have to agree with the nouns that they modify in case, number, and gender, but not necessarily in spelling. All right, one last thing. Let's talk about the Latin alphabet and classical pronunciation. The Latin language is pretty easy to pronounce because Latin consonants only have one sound. The B always sounds like the B in bat, the C always sounds like the C in cat, the D always sounds like the D in dog, the F always sounds like the F in fish, and so on. Latin vowels are a little trickier because they can have two sounds. One is short, one is long. The letter A in Latin has two sounds. A short one, as in about, a long one as the A in the word father. The E has a short E as in pet. The long E sounds like the E in the word they. It actually sounds like an A. Short I sounds like the I in pit, whereas long I sounds like the I in machine as an E sound. Short O sounds like the O in off, but long O sounds like the O in note. O. The short U sounds like the U in put, but the long U sounds like the U in rule. We should also note that the letter R in Latin is trilled, so it would be as if the word right had three R's. Right. The V in classical Latin is pronounced like the letter W, so w, like in wind. There are some instances where you get two vowels combined to make one sound, and these are called diphthongs. AE in Latin sounds like I in aisle, so does AI. Sounds like the AI in aisle. AU sounds like the OU in house, ow. IA sounds like the letters YA in our English word yacht, ya. UI sounds like the UY in the Spanish word muy. OE sounds like the OY in our English word boy, boy. And one consonant combination that we should note, the CH in Latin has a K sound like the CH in anchor. And that is our summary of the major grammar points in Lively Latin 1. Buona fortuna.